There is something strange about sitting in a corner coffee shop and watching your ex-wife walk in with her new husband. It had been 2 years since Jessica and I signed the divorce papers, 2 years since I had rebuilt my life from the ground up. But seeing her laugh with him, her hand in his, brought back memories I thought I had buried. Brad wore an expensive suit, laughed loud enough for everyone to hear, and had his arm wrapped around her waist like he was claiming territory. I told myself I had moved on, but what happened next would test that belief in ways I never expected. Brad spotted me and his expression shifted from surprise to contempt, then twisted into a smug grin. Before I continue, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they had you all figured out? If this story hits home, hit that like button right now. And make sure to subscribe, because what happened next completely changed my perspective on success revenge and what it means to truly move forward. Now, let me take you back to how I ended up in that coffee shop that afternoon, and why Brad's arrogant smile was about to cost him everything he thought he had earned. I married Jessica 7 years before that coffee shop encounter. We met fresh out of college, both hungry and ambitious. She landed a marketing position at a mid-sized firm, and I dove headfirst into building my own tech consulting startup. Those early years were filled with late nights working side by side, cold pizza at midnight, and business plans sketched on napkins. We dreamed together, or at least I thought we did. The first 3 years of our marriage were financially brutal. Every dollar I made went back into the company. Jessica started complaining about how her friends took vacations to Europe while we were clipping coupons. Arguments became routine. She wanted luxury handbags and weekend getaways. I wanted to reinvest in the business, build something that would last. The gap between what she expected and what I could provide grew wider every month. I remember working until 3 in the morning, knowing she was asleep in the next room, feeling completely alone, even though I was married. Then came the breaking point. She looked at me one evening and said the words I will never forget. "I did not marry you to live like we are still in college." The demand for divorce came suddenly right when the company was finally turning a profit. I agreed because I refused to hold on to someone who had stopped believing in us. The settlement was simple. She took the apartment, I kept the company. At the time, nobody knew what that company would become worth. Fast forward 2 years. I walked into my usual downtown coffee shop, the kind of place where freelancers and remote workers camp out for hours. I wore my standard outfit, hoodie, faded jeans, old sneakers. The outfit said, "Struggling entrepreneur," which was exactly what I wanted people to think. I ordered an Americano, opened my laptop, and settled into work. Then Jessica walked in. But she was not alone. Brad led the way, followed by a noisy group of 3 other couples. He wore an Armani suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His shoes were polished leather, and a Rolex caught the light every time he moved his wrist. Jessica looked completely different from the woman I had married. Designer dress, Hermes bag hair, professionally styled. She had transformed into exactly what she wanted to be. Jessica saw me first. She froze for just a second. Brad followed her gaze and recognized me immediately. I nodded politely, trying to keep things civil, but Brad was not interested in civility. He deliberately steered his group toward my table. "Jessica, is that not your ex? Still hanging out at coffee shops in the middle of the day?" His voice carried across the room. His friends chuckled on cue like a trained audience. I stood up and extended my hand. Brad introduced me to his friends with barely concealed mockery. "This is Jessica's ex-husband. You know, the one she told us about." I shook hands with each of them, maintaining my composure. Brad leaned in with a smirk. "So, what are you up to these days? Still trying to make that startup thing work?" I kept my answer simple. "Just working on some projects." The discomfort was immediate, but I refused to make a scene. Jessica looked awkward, avoiding eye contact. I wondered if she had told Brad anything about my company. Clearly, she had not. One of Brad's friends, a guy named Ryan, jumped in. "Wait, you do not have an office. You work from coffee shops." Another friend, Marcus, added with fake sympathy, "That is rough, man. The job market is tough right now." Brad piled on. "Oh, he does not really have a job in the traditional sense. More like freelancing, right?" They laughed together, treating me like a child with an adorable hobby. Then Brad made a show of paying for everyone's coffee. He pulled out a thick leather wallet and peeled off a $100 bill with exaggerated casualness. He turned to me. "You want me to grab yours too?" "No shame in it." I declined politely. "I am good, thanks." He pressed further. "You sure I know how those consulting gigs can be unpredictable?" Throughout this performance, Jessica looked increasingly uncomfortable. She tried to change the subject. "Brad, we should get our table." He ignored her, completely too absorbed in his moment of superiority. She shot me an apologetic glance but said nothing to stop him. Brad launched into bragging about his career. "I am Senior VP at Technova Solutions. Just closed a $15 million deal last quarter. The company is growing like crazy." Ryan chimed in. "Brad is basically running the whole West Coast operation now." Brad turned back to me. "Yeah, a real corporate job. Steady paycheck, benefits, company car. You know, adult stuff." He paused for effect. "But hey, freedom to work in hoodies is nice too, right?" Every fiber of my being wanted to reveal the truth right then. But something held me back. Curiosity, maybe. I wanted to see how far he would go. Professional instinct also kicked in. Never show your cards too early. I responded calmly. "Everyone's path is different," Brad laughed. "That is one way to put it." Marcus decided to offer his assistance. "You know Technova is actually hiring. I could put in a word if you need something stable." He pulled out his business card and handed it to me. "I am in HR there. We have entry-level positions open." Brad jumped back in. "Marcus, do not embarrass the guy. I'm sure he is doing fine with his projects." He winked at his friends. Ryan contributed his own commentary. "No, seriously though, dude. Coffee shop laptop life only looks cool in your 20s. You are what late 30s, time to grow up, get a real position." He mentioned his own role as Director of Operations at Technova. "We all work together. It is like a family. Great company culture." The fourth friend, Tony, had been quiet until now. "I mean, Jessica upgraded, right?" Brad grinned. "Tony works under me. I'm teaching him how to close deals." Tony added, "Brad pulled in $2 million in commission last year alone." Brad looked at Jessica, then back at me. "It is not about the money, though. It is about stability, security, being able to provide." I made mental notes during this entire performance. All four men worked at Technova. Brad was Senior VP. Marcus handled HR. Ryan directed operations. Tony worked in sales. What made this particularly interesting was that none of them mentioned the recent acquisition. They had no idea that 6 months ago Technova had been purchased through a shell company. They did not know who owned it now. Brad decided to make his generous offer. The patronizing tone reached a new level. "You know what I am feeling generous today. Jessica, did you not mention Alfredo was always good with computers?" He turned to me. "We might have an IT support role opening up. Pays about $45,000. Not glamorous, but it is a start." His friends nodded encouragingly as if they were performing charity work for the less fortunate. Then Brad put his arm around Jessica possessively. "Babe, remember when you said you worried about him? Well, look at us now. You made the right choice." Jessica protested weakly. "Brad, please." But he continued. "What I am, just being honest. She deserves someone established. Someone with a future." He pulled out his phone. "Tony, grab a picture of us. Jessica, smile. Show your ex what happiness looks like." Finally, Brad handed me his business card. "Here, when you are ready to join the real world, email me. I will see what I can do. No promises, but I have some pull in hiring decisions." The card read, Bradley Morrison, Senior Vice President, Technova Solutions. I took it slowly, reading every word, and said nothing. Inside, something clicked. I looked at that card and remembered signing the acquisition papers 6 months earlier. Technova Solutions. One of 3 companies under my corporation's umbrella. I had restructured it personally and approved the expansion that created Brad's VP position. Every paycheck these 4 men received had my signature on the approval. The $15 million deal Brad had closed, I had reviewed and approved it personally. The company car he drove, I had approved that entire fleet purchase. I looked up and made direct eye contact with Brad. A calm smile crossed my face. Thanks for the card. I will definitely be in touch. Brad's arrogance peaked. Do not wait too long. Opportunities do not last forever, I replied quietly. Neither do positions. He missed the double meaning entirely and laughed it off. The group finally moved to their table, leaving me alone with my thoughts and his business card. I sat back down and stared at the card for a long moment. Then I pulled out my phone and texted my executive assistant, Margaret. Need full employment files on 4 people at Technova. Brad Morrison, Marcus Henderson, Ryan Clark, and Tony Ruiz. Her response came immediately. Is there a problem, sir? I typed back. Just gathering information. I will be in the office Monday morning. I spent the entire weekend reviewing files. Brad Morrison had been Senior VP for 18 months. His performance reviews were mixed at best. Several complaints documented his aggressive management style. His expense reports showed excessive spending on entertainment borderline policy violations. Marcus had solid performance overall, but a recent warning about an information confidentiality breach stood out. Ryan had good operational numbers, but team satisfaction scores had declined 30% under his leadership. Tony was still in his probation period, knew enough that his file was thin. I wrestled with the decision all weekend. Was this revenge? Or a legitimate business decision? I remembered one of my core leadership principles: emotional decisions make bad business. But I also believed that toxic employees who publicly mock others reveal deep character flaws. I decided to approach this professionally. Evaluate fairly. Let actions speak for themselves. I scheduled an executive team meeting for Monday morning. Monday arrived. I dressed in my usual casual style. It was a deliberate choice. I drove my modest Honda to the office, passing by the luxury cars in my garage. Most Technova employees had never seen my face. The acquisition had been handled entirely through lawyers and the board. It was time to make an appearance. I walked into the Technova Solutions building that Monday morning. The lobby was sleek, modern, all glass and steel. The security guard at the front desk looked up at me with barely concealed skepticism. "Can I help you, sir? Do you have an appointment?" "I am here to see David Park, the managing director." The guard looked doubtful. "Your name?" "Alfredo Castellanos. He is expecting me." The guard made a phone call. His eyes widened mid-conversation. "Mr. Castellanos, I apologize. Please go right up. 20th floor." I got into the elevator with a group of employees heading to their morning meetings. They were discussing their weekend plans, completely unaware of who stood beside them. One mentioned, "Did you hear Brad is having another one of his power meetings today?" Another responded, "Yeah, he has been impossible since that big deal. Acts like he owns the place." I stayed silent, absorbing every word. They exited on the 15th floor, still chatting. David Park's office occupied a corner of the 20th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows. He stood as I entered, clearly nervous. "Mr. Castellanos, thank you for coming in personally. We were not expecting you. Call me Alfredo, and I prefer surprise visits. They tell me more than scheduled meetings." I did not waste time with pleasantries. "I want a walkthrough of every department, unannounced, and I need you to call an all-hands meeting for 11 this morning. Department heads and VPs." David looked uncertain. "All of them. Should I tell them what it is about?" "No. Just say ownership wants to address the team. We walked through the offices together. Employees worked at their desks, some noticed us, most did not. I asked David questions about culture morale and recent changes. He gave diplomatic answers. We passed Ryan's office. He was on the phone, head down, and never looked up. We walked by Marcus in the HR department. He was reviewing files and waved absently at David. Neither man recognized me in my casual clothes. At 11, the large conference room filled up. Department heads, VPs, and senior managers filed in. About 25 people total. The murmuring started immediately. "Anyone know what this is about?" someone asked. "Another acquisition," someone else guessed. Brad entered last loud and joking with colleagues. "Probably the board sending some consultant to optimize costs." Marcus added, "As long as they do not touch our commissions." Ryan laughed. "David said ownership wants to address us." Then I walked in with David. I stood at the front of the room in my hoodie and jeans. The room went completely silent. Brad did a visible double-take. "What the hell?" He looked at David with confusion and anger. "Why is Jessica's ex-husband here?" David looked uncomfortable, but before he could speak, I interrupted calmly. "I will introduce myself." I took a breath and began. "Good morning, everyone. For those who do not know me, my name is Alfredo Castellanos. 6 months ago, Castellanos Ventures acquired Technova Solutions through a structured buyout. I am the majority owner and chairman of the parent corporation." The silence was absolute. Brad's face drained of all color. Marcus looked at Ryan, both men frozen. Tony dropped his pen and it clattered loudly on the table. I continued with deliberate calm. "I generally prefer to remain hands-off and let talented teams do their work. David and the board handle day-to-day operations excellently. But this weekend something came to my attention that required personal intervention." I looked directly at Brad. "I ran into some of your team members. We had an interesting conversation about company culture." Brad tried to recover. "Mr. Castellanos, I had no idea you were—" I cut him off. "No, you did not. Because you were too busy making assumptions. You offered me a job, Brad, an entry-level IT support position, $45,000 a year." Several people in the room gasped. Others stifled nervous laughs. Brad stammered. "That was— I did not know." "You did not know because you did not ask. You saw someone in casual clothes working from a coffee shop and decided you knew their worth." I turned to the wider room. "I have reviewed the files. Brad, your performance reviews show a pattern. Aggressive management, low team morale, questionable expense reports. The $15 million deal you closed, excellent work, but it does not excuse behavior." David handed me a folder. "Your position is terminated effective immediately. HR will discuss severance." The room was deathly silent. I moved on to the others. "Marcus, you leaked confidential salary information last month. That is a direct policy violation. You are being reassigned to a non-sensitive role with a 90-day performance review. Ryan, your operational numbers are solid, but team satisfaction has dropped 30%. You will be working with an executive coach. Improve within 6 months or exit. Tony, you are still in probation. Consider this a warning about choosing your mentors wisely." Brad stood abruptly. "This is about Jessica. You are just bitter about the divorce." I kept my voice level. "This is about you humiliating someone in public without knowing the facts. If you had treated me with basic human respect, we would not be here. Your behavior revealed exactly the kind of leader you are." I nodded to security by the door. "You will be escorted out." As security approached, Brad looked around the room for support. Nobody met his eyes. Marcus stared at the table. Ryan looked away. Tony seemed to shrink in his chair. The room remained silent as Brad was led out. After he left, I addressed everyone else. "Let me be clear. This company values respect at every level. How you treat people when you think nobody important is watching reveals your true character. I expect excellence, but never at the cost of basic human decency. I paused. Questions. Nobody spoke. I nodded to David and left the room. Later that week, an email appeared in my inbox. The subject line read, "I am sorry." It was from Jessica. She apologized for Brad's behavior, said she was horrified by what had happened. She explained that she had never told Brad about my success because she wanted a clean break from our past. She had no idea he would be so cruel. She asked if we could talk. 2 weeks later, we met at the same coffee shop. Jessica arrived alone, dressed simply looking subdued. She sat down across from me. "I did not know you had become all this," she started quietly. I considered the question she had not quite asked. Would it have mattered? She was honest. Maybe, probably, I do not know. She admitted that she left because she could not see the vision I had for the future. She wanted immediate success, not a slow build. Brad seemed like stability. Turned out he was just arrogance. "I am not angry at you anymore," I told her honestly. "I have not been for a while. You wanted different things. That is okay. We were not compatible for the long term." Jessica looked down at her coffee. I threw away something real for appearances. "We both learned something," I replied. She looked up. "Did you fire Brad because of me?" "I fired Brad because of Brad. His behavior would have caught up with him eventually. I just accelerated the timeline." We talked for another hour, covering old ground with new perspective. There was no rekindling. Both of us understood that ship had sailed long ago. But we found something better: respect and closure. As we stood to leave, Jessica said, "For what it's worth, I am proud of what you built." "Thank you," I replied genuinely. "I hope you find what you're looking for." We parted on better terms than we had been in years. In the months that followed, I thought a lot about that day. Success is not about proving others wrong. For a long time, I wondered why I stayed quiet when Brad first mocked me. I realized I wanted to see if he would show basic human decency when given the chance. The disappointment was not about the mockery itself. It was about the cruelty, the casual enjoyment he took in trying to humiliate someone he perceived as beneath him. That experience changed how I ran my companies. I started doing more unannounced walkthroughs, always in casual clothes. I wanted to see how employees treated stranger service workers and people they assumed had no power. Character reveals itself when people think nobody important is watching. I made it a firm company policy across all my businesses: respect at all levels or find somewhere else to work. I also realized I had been hiding my success partly out of lingering insecurity from the divorce. Jessica leaving had made me feel like I was not enough. I built my empire partly to prove something to myself, maybe to her, maybe to the world. But that day in the coffee shop taught me something crucial. True power lives in restraint. I did not need to flex. I did not need to impress anyone. The work spoke for itself. I started dating again, but differently this time. I introduced myself as Alfredo, not as CEO of anything. I wanted people to like me for who I was, not what I had built. I met Emma, a middle school teacher. She knew me for 6 months before she learned about my companies. By then, she loved me for our morning coffee conversations and terrible jokes, not for my bank account. These days, I still work from coffee shops sometimes. I still wear hoodies and jeans. And when I see someone sitting alone with a laptop and a dream, I buy their coffee anonymously and leave a note: "Keep going. You never know what you are building." Because here's what I learned. You never know who is sitting across from you. That person in worn-out sneakers might be your next employer. The quiet one in the corner might change your industry. The one you mock today might hold your future in their hands tomorrow. But more importantly, you never know who you are capable of becoming. I learned that revenge is not about destroying someone else's life. It is about building yours so well that their opinions become irrelevant. Brad did not lose his job because I was petty. He lost it because cruelty always has consequences and character always matters more than title. The universe does not always deliver justice, but sometimes when you do the work and stay true to yourself, things have a way of balancing out. Success is not measured by who you prove wrong. It is measured by who you become in the process. And I became someone I am genuinely proud of. Not because of the money or the companies or the power, but because I learned grace under pressure. I learned that true strength is not in crushing those who underestimate you. It is in building something meaningful while staying humble enough to remember what it felt like to be underestimated. So here is my question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where someone completely misjudged you? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe, if you have not already, because I share more stories about real-life lessons, second chances, and the unexpected ways life teaches us what truly matters. Thank you for listening. I hope wherever you are in your journey, you remember that your worth is not determined by who recognizes it. Keep building, keep believing, and never let someone else's limited vision define your unlimited potential.